Hey, what's up everyone and welcome to today's video. This channel's regular broadcast is interrupted for a special coverage of the first appearance of Sean Koima, also known as Karma. This happened in the pages of Marvel Team Up issue 100, published by Marvel Comics in 1980. Peter Parker, also known as the Amazing Spider-Man, is roaming the skies of New York City using his web shooters, heading home, as suddenly his mind is taken over. Not knowing who attacked him, he's trying to resist and regain control over his body, but he's not successful in doing so. During the struggle, he realizes he's falling and is crashing his way downward, trying to grab whatever he can get his hands on to regain stability. The person causing all of this is standing close by on a rooftop, wondering if she should let him go, but she can't. There is too much at stake. She takes full control of Spider-Man's body as he's still falling and is able to grab a hold of the edge of the building. But it breaks and he slides down the side of the building. Spider-Man's extraordinary powers cause his scraping fingers to leave marks in the building, but it's not enough to stop him from falling. The person currently in possession of Spidey's body is trying to focus. She's done this before and this subject should not be any different. He's getting really close to the ground and bystanders see him and are yelling to call the cops and an ambulance. Suddenly, the person in control of Spider-Man realizes she's no longer falling down. Somehow his fingers are sticking to the wall he was just sliding down from, and they are able to carry his full weight. What's more, he's able to crawl the wall and make his way back up, and it went way more easily than expected. The person possessing Spider-Man is not used to having these skills like he does, experiencing his strength, speed and agility, as well as his web shooters on his wrists. She is now convinced she made the right decision in picking Spider-Man for whatever she's got planned. As she's making her way through the city, she notices Spider-Man is still trying to fight her. He has a strong will. She also notices her becoming more similar to Spider-Man and has no idea how far this will go. The longer this mission will take, the bigger the chance the process might become irreversible. But she's convinced herself that tonight, with the help of Spider-Man's body, she will either win or die. Somewhere else in the city, in the Freedom Tower, Mr. Fantastic and Invisible Woman and the Thing of the Fantastic Four are guests at a charity party hosted by Nguyen Ngo Khoi, a former general in the South Vietnamese army who is now a businessman and a self-made multimillionaire. He bought several of Alicia Master's sculptures, and Alicia is the current girlfriend of Ben Grimm the Thing. The general says it's his way of thanking America for being so good to him, as he introduces Reed and Sue Richards to his nephew Tron and his little brother and sister. Sue emphatically tells the kids that she feels sorry for what they had to go through and that she and Reed have a son about their age. But General Khoi tells her that sadly they do not speak any English. He says it's way past their bedtime as he snaps his fingers and tells two of his employees to take the kids away. They pass Benjamin Grimm and his girlfriend, the sculptor Alicia Masters, as Ben notices bulges underneath the employees' clothes, which makes him believe that there are guns tucked in there. Alicia mentions how she doesn't like the host very much, regardless of how much he has done for the charity. Ben tells her he shares that sentiment and they will leave soon. Upstairs, the two kids ask where their sister is and they're being told to shut up by the two employees. Spider-Man is watching this unfold, but it's not Spider-Man at all. It's apparently their sister in Spider-Man's body. She attacks the two men and one of them manages to fire his gun, which she's pretty sure will alarm more of the guards. She tries to calm down her little brother and sister by telling them he was sent by their big sister. Suddenly she's being thrown off guard, as Spider-Man's spider sense is alarming her from oncoming danger. Mr. Fantastic manages to catch her with his rubber-like arms, but she manages to hold her ground by sticking her feet to the ground, using the same power she discovered earlier in her fingertips. She recognizes Reed as the leader of the Fantastic Four, who is joined by the Thing. They both are very familiar with Spider-Man, and Reed tells Spidey he did not expect kidnapping to be a thing Spidey would do, but the Fantastic Four will put a stop to it before it's even started. They end up in a fight, and the Thing asks Spidey if he's tired of being one of the good guys. This question surprises the woman possessing Spider-Man as she figured him to be a criminal. Mr. Fantastic notices some strange behavior in Spider-Man, nor does he seem to recognize them at all, even though they've known each other for a long time. Reed tells Ben to be careful as the woman using Spider-Man's body and powers throws Ben into Reed, with him getting tied up in Reed's flexible body. More guards appear, as well as Sue the Invisible Woman, and the General himself. who appears to be the uncle to the woman in Spidey's body. Sue tells the general to have his men stand down and put their guns away, as she tries to de-escalate the situation. The older nephew tells his uncle he could take care of the situation, but the general tells him his unique talent must be preserved for more unique situations. Sue tells Spidey that she doesn't want to hurt him, because he had rescued her son in a previous adventure, but she says he leaves her no alternative as she attacks Spidey with a barrage of invisible force balls. She's holding back a little, and the possessed Spider-Man makes use of this and hits her, but he's immediately attacked by Mr. Fantastic again, who gets his face covered in webbing, same as the Thing does. The general and his nephew observe this and think it's about time Tron used his powers. He attacks Spider-Man, whose mind is on fire, with Tron also trying to take control of him. Outside, the woman who was already controlling Spider-Man senses this immediately. She recognizes it's being done by Tron and notices him being successful. Tron did not expect a resistance like this in taking over Spider-Man's mind, but he's sure it will not take much longer. The woman outside is very familiar with Tron's abilities and knows their powers are equal. But Tron is healthy, well-fed and in peak condition, and she is not. Far from that actually. She figures Tron is not aware of her possessing Spider-Man yet, but she realizes that it would not have made any difference, because even if he did, with him being her twin brother, they are pretty much strangers to one another now. Enemies even. She realizes it's better to release her hold over Spider-Man for now. She'll remain safe for now, but she failed her little brother and sister, Leon and Nagar. Inside, the Thing approaches a dazed Spider-Man, as he rips the webbing off his stone-like face and punches him out cold. General Coy does not appear to want to call the police, and is fine with Reed Richards suggesting for them to take Spider-Man along with them. Back in the Baxter building, the current headquarters of the Fantastic Four, Reed intends to find out what the reason is behind Spider-Man resorting to criminal activities before taking any further steps involving the police. If for whatever reason Spidey's become some kind of an innocent pawn of a villain, they owe him their support for all he's done for them in the past. Spidey wakes up and can't remember a thing of what happened in the past hour. The last thing he remembers is swinging through the city heading back home. Johnny Storm, the Human Torch, has joined the rest of the members of the Fantastic Four, and Reed makes sure that Spider-Man does not remember trying to kidnap the kids, or fighting them for that matter. Spidey doesn't, as he's confused about the situation as they are, apart from him not having any recollection of what he had done. Ben and Reed accompany Spider-Man to one of Reed's laboratories. They're going to run Spidey through some tests to try and see if they can find out anything. The readings show that for all intents and purposes it seemed like Spidey had been turned off for a while, resembling being dead actually. No traces of him being alive whatsoever. What Reed does find, however, is some kind of a residual energy pattern that seems to be somewhat familiar. His arm stretches out through the building, around the corner, past his wife and brother-in-law, grabs the phone and dials a number. He calls the Charles Xavier School for Gifted Youngsters. Professor Charles Xavier is the mentor and teacher of the Uncanny X-Men, a group of superheroes with mutant abilities, born different from the rest of the human population, who are often feared and hated regardless of their well-meant intentions. The school also secretly functions as the headquarters of the X-Men team. The team members Storm, Colossus and Wolverine are honing their skills as individuals and as a team in the Danger Room, under the watchful eye of Xavier himself as he's answering the phone call and has a conversation with Reed. Xavier can confirm Reed's suspicions, and he tells him that his mutant detecting computer system Cerebro had indeed registered an unusual amount of mutant activity earlier in the evening, indicating two distinct entities most likely possessing similar abilities. He tells Reed he had been wanting to investigate the activity himself, and he offers Reed assistance. Reed tells him there's no need, and Xavier adds that their power readings are unlike anything he has ever encountered before. He asks Reed to please keep him updated with his findings. Later, after tracing the telemetry sent by Xavier, the Fantastic Four and Spider-Man end up at a church in Manhattan. Spidey immediately jumps out of the Fantastic car, and Mr. Fantastic tells the Torch to follow him, because they have no idea what's waiting for them inside the church. Johnny tries to calm Spidey down, but he's not in the mood. He was being used as a puppet by a criminal and almost died, So he smashes through the stained glass and confronts the priest inside, asking him what gave him the right to mess with his mind. The woman standing by the priest, whom he calls Sean, panics and immediately uses her power to attack and possess the Human Torch. He screams, but he can't resist. He's taking over and Sean uses his powers to attack Spider-Man. Her control over her subjects is not as fluid as they would normally be, and Spider-Man uses this knowledge to try and get the upper hand. He kicks Johnny but is not able to knock him out, so he figures he'd better try and take out the woman instead. Sean tells him she made a grave mistake in picking Spider-Man, and because of her error she's about to lose everything she holds dear. She tells Spidey she just wants to be left alone with her grief, as she flies into an invisible wall, courtesy of Johnny's sister Sue, the Invisible Woman. Reed tells his wife to keep Spidey and the Torch separated while they try and get this mess sorted out. The priest loses it with all this violence in his house of worship and asks everyone to leave. Sean drops to her knees, begging the father to forgive her and asking herself what she had done, and all the while losing everything in the process. Sue notices the pain and desolation in her voice, and Reed asks if there's anywhere where they can just talk. When they are all settled down in a room, Father Bowen explains how he was in the army before he joined the priesthood, and that's how he met Sean. Sean tells everyone that she's a Vietnamese refugee. She tells everyone how she grew up and that her father was a colonel in the South Vietnamese army. With he himself being an honest man, but also very efficient, he got sent on dangerous missions with his wife and children following. He did his best to keep them out of harm's way, but was not always able to do so. She wonders if the horrible weapons used in the war caused her and her brother to be different, but she's not sure about this. Nor does she really care, because all she knows is they are different. This became very clear when the village they lived in got attacked by the Viet Cong. A soldier was about to kill her brother Tron, and somehow Sean, who witnesses, was able to stop the soldier. She simply wanted to stop the soldier, but Tron, who soon found out he had the same powers, eventually took control of the soldier, and made the man repeatedly beat his head into a pole, until he died. And Tron seemed to enjoy this, while she herself never liked her own powers, even feared them. Tron demonstrated his newfound powers to his Uncle Nguyen, a man her father had never liked and spoke of with contempt. A man Sean also never liked, even though he was always nice to her. Tron also told her uncle that Sean possesses the same abilities, and he told Tron that he will not forget about them. Later, when South Vietnam fell in the war, he arranged for their evacuation, but in the confusion, only Tron was rescued, leaving the rest of them at the mercy of the new communist regime. Sean, reluctantly using her powers out of necessity, was able to keep them relatively safe. They survived, were kept out of prison, and did not get executed, and eventually escaped. Desperately embarking on small overcrowded boats, she was growing sick and hungry at sea, unable to use her powers when Thai pirates attacked them. All men on board got murdered, including her father, and the fate of the women was even worse than death, with the agony being far too much to bear for many of the women. Her mother died on the same day they were rescued, but Sean could not cry. She had no tears left. She wanted to grieve for everything that had happened to her mother and to her father, but it was as if she herself had died inside. They were sent to America and eventually got reunited with her brother Tron and Uncle Nguyen. Her uncle had become successful in the meantime, and her brother had changed. He had grown cold and calculating, lacking any trace of humanity or compassion. Her uncle suggested that she should use her powers in his service. She could become very wealthy if she would. Sean refused and she left with her little brother and sister. When she had been rescued, the Navy gave her Father Bowen's name, telling her he had established a relief agency for so-called boat people. Over time, she trusted Father Bowen more than she could her relatives, and with his aid, she was able to get a job and a place for her own, and for her sibling. Smiles and hope were slowly returning to their lives. Until one day, when her place got ransacked. Her brother and sister were taken by her uncle, who told her that she would only see them again if she would work for him. She had until midnight to decide. Hatred grew inside of her, and she tried to find a way to fight fire with fire. Thanks to the Daily Bugle smear campaign of Spider-Man, Sean believes Spidey to be a criminal. This is why she picked Spider-Man to be her puppet and used him to attack her uncle and liberate her brother and sister. The Fantastic Four and Spider-Man are astounded and horrified by this life story and swear to help Sean.